Welcome to Advocation X, episode number 36. Time for a newsworthy illness broadcast. A special thanks and hello to all you beautiful people out there. Before we continue, please help further our cause by hitting the like button, subscribing for growing content. Become a member and smash that bell while you're at it so you miss nothing going forward. Our disclaimer. Ours is an opinion channel, but it's based on facts. Questions will be answered if you're a subscribed member of this channel. However, we do accept all suggestions and welcome critical analysis. So, topics to tackle here and now. Ontario stores, food banks, expert consensus comes with a price tag. The news gets even worse. USA, number 1. New York City, Toronto Stock Exchange, and Brooke Baldwin. Let's unpack this right now. So, some of you may have heard, and if not, I'll reiterate here, that the Ontario stores are closing at an alarming rate. This is due to legislation and direction from the provincial government, or Doug Ford. He has brought us to a point where stores are going to have to go online or curbside pickup. The problem is that people are just using the stores now as a social gathering spot. Rather than just doing their shopping and getting out and keeping that social distancing, they're actually congregating in aisles and getting close and not really furthering the cause of this social distancing that we're all supposed to be doing. So this is the plight of the store owners now. They're going to either have to adapt and become online services or do curbside pickup. Now, I don't know if they're going to do it where you purchase in advance and then they can have your stuff ready for you curbside, and that way there's hardly any interaction, there's no transactions, etc., etc. So we'll see how that works out. So moving on. Our food banks. Food banks across Canada are desperate right now. They've always been an integral part of every society, just helping each other like neighbor to neighbor, like we all should always be. But at this point right now, with people not working and people social distancing, the donations are slim and far between. They have a very finite supply at this moment. And administering that supply is also going to be a challenge based on social distancing, etc., etc. So, with that being said, with the desperation that they're up against and the fact that all their volunteers are primarily of the retiree type, so they're in that category of being very vulnerable to this COVID-19. So there's also becoming a shortage of volunteers. They need your help. They seriously need your help. Now, I'm sure that the same thing is replicating itself across all countries. So, as I know, we do have several different countries that have already piped into my channel. This is for all your countries. Share these videos. Help people understand that the plight is not simple, but there is a path forward. Okay? And later on in the numbers, this will show. So let me move on. When we look at the experts and their consensus in the consultation, we're looking at a super bad cold illness that should be around for anywhere between 12 months and 2 years. That's right, folks, you heard correctly. 12 months to 2 years. But again, they leave the open caveat because it's impossible to pinpoint this. We're using models that are based on other countries, other cities, other places similar to us. Canadians, you have an opportunity here. You have an opportunity to show the rest of the world that you can lead the way once again. Your actions will dictate how quickly we are able to smash that curve and get this all under control. So we're counting on you, Canadians, to show the world exactly how it's done. And we're counting on every country out there to really do their part and make this a thing of the past very quickly. So, in the depth of the super bad cold illness, it comes with a price tag. The Canadian price tag has now been put at $3,000 to $15,000 or more of our loving family, friends, neighbors that will be losing their lives on account of this crisis. You heard correctly. 3,000 to 15,000 of our loved ones and friends' lives are going to be sacrificed in this crisis, unless you do more than your part. Talk to your neighbors and your friends. Let's make sure we're upholding all the directives that have been given so that we can get by this as quickly as possible. So moving on. The news gets even worse. Donald J. Trump, we all know who I mean, has decreed that no PPEs are to cross the border into Canada or South America. Needless to say, this is not a position that anybody is fond of. I would venture to say that most of the people south of our border would not agree with this decree. We have always been great neighbors and allies when it comes to the problems that the USA has faced over the decades. We have always been there when they've needed a helping hand. During 9/11, the multitudes and thousands of people that landed in Canadian space and were cared for and taken in by Canadian residents without so much as a grumble. This is done by good friends and good neighbors. This is how you help each other. But you do have one who is leading your country. And that one individual, Donald J. Trump, I love to use his grandfather's real name because that is the name he should have been born with, Trump. He's decided no PPEs are coming across to help the medical community in Canada to save lives, or South America, the medical community would be restricted in saving lives. Not that they would allow that to deter them, but it would mean that many of the frontline workers and healthcare workers would lose their lives in the process. It's almost impossible to conceive a leader of any country deciding, I'm going to sentence your healthcare workers and frontline workers to death because I want to be selfish and short-sighted. It's a very difficult thing to swallow. Now let me talk a little bit about the short-sightedness. The Trump failed to consider the fact that the materials that come into the United States to produce those 3M masks come directly from Canada. So if we cut off that line of supply, they would have no masks. So it's not within the United States' self-interest to cut off the supply of masks to their ally in the north. It is in their best interest to maintain a good relationship so that we continue to help each other through each and every crisis that arrives. So let's hope that the American people override these crass, crazy decisions that are decided on by their fearless leader, the Drumpf. Now let's get into the numbers. The numbers worldwide are quite frightening, actually. We're at 1,273,712 total cases worldwide, with 69,458 souls who have been laid to rest. However, we do have 262,486 people who have recovered. So that's the terrific news. It comes to about 79% of the resolved cases are in the recovered column. But that leaves 21%. 21% of the resolved cases ending in the loss of great souls. I'm sorry, but to me those are grim prospects. So in the USA, we have a total of 336,830 total cases, with 309,235 active cases. Of the resolved cases, there are 17,977 recovered, and 9,618 deceased. Those are loving family, friends, and neighbors who have lost their lives in the US of A. Let's look at Italy. Italy's numbers are at 128,948 total cases, 91,246 active, and of the resolved cases, there is 21,815 recovered, with 15,887 loving souls passed on in Italy. That is an astounding number. The UK has a dismal number of recovered cases. So I'm not even going to go into their numbers because it is just a very depressing snapshot of what's going on in the UK. Needless to say, the UK needs everyone's help. They need a model they can follow. So let's look to Canada, who has a fraction of these numbers. We have 15,512 total cases, 12,290 active cases, with resolved cases of 2,942 recovered and 280 lost souls. One is too much. 280 is far too much. But as you can see, that is a fraction of the totals around the world. Canada, please continue to set a good example. No, continue to set a better example. We need to stop losing lives. Do your part. Volunteer and help out where you can. Try to pass the information on to your friends and neighbors, not to violate restrictions. Let's get this thing nipped. Let's get the rest of the world a clear path to recovery. So all in all, what this does is it makes the United States of America number one. The Drumpf has made you number one in the world. Number one for the amount of cases, number one for the amount of deceased, number one in not such a good aspect of being number one. I'm not sure that I want that ribbon. And not that I want you guys to have it. I'd like you to do something about getting rid of that sort of a track record. If you truly want to be number one, let's try to be number one in recoveries. Let's be number one in minimal cases. That's something you can strive for, United States, and all of its citizens. I'm sure that's something that you all would enjoy. Yes, become number one, okay? Number one is not a bad place to be when it's a positive number one. So let me move on from there. Again, I will say this is definitely not the US citizens that are to blame for these drastic and horrible numbers, but the Trump administration has been very short-sighted and very selfish. And unfortunately, I think that's going to contribute to the horrible outcomes. So, anyways, the American people know what they have to do. I trust them to be a lot more informed than they were a few years back. New York City is the absolute epicenter of the world when it comes to COVID-19 cases. Sorry, the super bad cold illness cases. The one bright spot in New York is they have a governor who is a true leader, a true patriot, one who sincerely cares about every single person in the entire country. He has exhibited leadership that has not been seen in a few years. He's cognizant of what needs to be done. He's great at reallocating resources and putting things in perspective. He's great at staying calm and giving everybody the hope in a perspective that they can understand. Governor Cuomo is a great asset to New York and to all the United States of America. And I only wish and pray that he will continue to be that beacon and move forward and help the country move forward and set some examples on how to actually share and help your neighbors. Don't steal from your neighbors. Don't try to hurt your neighbors. Be there for them. Because you know what? They'll be there for you when you need them the most. Governor Cuomo, keep up the great example. Keep things moving forward. Now I want to take a quick look at the stock exchange and how it's been affected by this horrible, super bad cold illness. The Toronto Stock Exchange, the markets, of course, were down, as were the Dow Jones and the other markets south of the border. However, the Dow Jones came up a loser over the week, while the TSX actually was a winner overall when you look at the numbers for the week. So, stark contrast to the two markets. And that could be attributed to the leaders in each of these countries. It seems that the leader in Canada has done a good job at containing and keeping these numbers small, so thereby giving a great outlook for the end of this crisis and everybody getting back on their feet. Now, there's something else I want to point to as well when it comes to these markets. I predicted this before this point. I did say that there was going to be quite the crash, and then there would be, from that crash, a market correction where everything would start to climb again, and all those scared investors would jump back in and start throwing their money at these rising stocks. And it would take another deep crash. Well, that could be stock manipulation, because, of course, if I own 10% of the entire stock exchange and I start a huge sell-off of my stocks, first of all, I'm going to get them at the highest point possible. So I'm going to sell off, let's say, 25% of my stocks and make a huge windfall. That will pay for more than 100% of my stock. As it starts to go down, I'll pick another point and I'll sell maybe another 20% of my stock. The market will start to crumble, and I will have taken another chunk of profit out of my investments. Now, when the market keeps on dipping, of course, I'm losing money as well. So what do? I start buying some of those stocks. I'm buying them at a discount, remember. I sold them pretty decent. I'm buying them low. The stock market does what? It starts to climb again. because the big numbers, big activity is going on there, and everybody starts to jump into the frenzy again. So as it starts to go up again, I take another huge chunk of my profits out of the stock exchange. Maybe I sell 40% of my shares, and I reap all those benefits now before it hits the bottom. And I hold that cash, I hold that liquidity until it finishes its descent down near the bottom. Now, anything that survives all of that, the companies that go bankrupt, I can see who was strong, who wasn't, who was worthy of my investment, who wasn't. Now I look at their prospects for the future. Are they innovative? Do they have futuristic plans? And if so, I load the stock market at the bottom. I buy up all your shares that you lost tons and tons of liquidity on, and I buy them for pennies on the dollar. Good deal for me, not so much for you. Now, of course, that's not me. I don't have those billions and billions of dollars to invest in the stock market. But those that do, they know what they're doing. And if you think they're stupid, if you think they don't have these plans at hand, watching everything as it moves up, down, and in between, knowing exactly when to stoke the markets to go up or stoke them to go down, don't fool yourself. These people are chess players. And if you bring checker pieces to the game, sorry, just doesn't work. Okay? So, those are my thoughts on the stock exchange. Now, there's a wonderful lady, Brooke Baldwin. She is a co-anchor on MSNBC, a co-anchor of Chris Cuomo. Okay, I mean, they have different shows, but they both do the same job. Both, in my opinion, delightful people. I'm not a 100% great fan of MSNBC because there's a lot of things that they don't do right or well. But the things that they do right and well, I think you can mostly see them in Chris Cuomo and in Brooke Baldwin. Brooke Baldwin had a beautiful emotional piece the other day, and I followed it quite closely. But now we're sending out our love and prayers and best wishes to Brooke Baldwin and Chris Cuomo, because they are both right now suffering under the ravages of this super bad cold illness. We wish them nothing but the best in recovery, and we hope they get right back on that horse and they're able to bring things back in perspective for everybody, as well as maybe help clean up a little bit of that MSN bad rap. Okay? So, Brooke Baldwin, Chris Cuomo, we wish you guys the absolute best. Come on back with a vengeance. Show the rest of the herd which direction they should be moving in. So, please leave your comments in the comment section. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, become a member, crush that bell. Don't miss any further content. And once again, let me reiterate. We never give up, and we never give in. But we'll always keep an open mind because we know that knowledge is power. Do your research. Maintain and gain your power. So until next time, thank you very much for spending time with us here on this channel, and we hope to see you again in the future in office. I hope you are liking the new visuals in my upgraded studio or office. Thank you very much. Until next time.